Welcome to this MTOM podcast at the Iowa State Fair. I'm Paul Yeager, and today we are in a golf cart in a rainstorm. Well, okay, it's not really that much rain.
It's been a rainstorm.
It's getting that way. Rob Brenneman is from Washington, Iowa. He's also president-elect of the NPPC.
President.
Oh, you're president now?
President
Did World Pork Expo, was there?
It was March.
It was
Pork
March.
Forum.
So you're
Yep.
president of NPPC,
Yep.
but
Yep.
you produce in the state of Iowa.
I do.
So let's talk here at the Iowa State Fair. What is your background or your good experiences here at the fair?
Oh, there's been a lot of them. Man, I showed probably 3 or 4 times. I showed cattle. I never showed pigs up there, but I showed cattle, and it was always a carcass class. It was kind of a new thing. And the last year I showed, I think as a senior in high school, I had a Charolais Angus that won the class, won the rated gain, won the carcass, the whole 9 yards. And when I graduated from high school, I had sows, but I really wanted some cattle. And so I had a neighbor who was, I was renting his farm, and he said he had like 30 acres of pasture and some hay in the barn. He said, let's buy some cows together. And I said, let's do it. And so Daryl and I bought 19 cows that had calves on them. And we put them on that pasture, and he had, I don't know, a decent amount of hay in the barn, and then we fed out the calves, all 19 calves. We were feeding them out. He had ear corn in the corn crib. This is a pretty good story.
Oh,
and so anyway, then it had to water. So he wanted me to bring over 10, 12 pigs to clean up the corn out of the cattle manure. And so that way it wouldn't cost us anything. So we had a hog water that would do the cattle at the top and the pigs at the bottom. Well, one day the pigs got the float off and the water ran over, and the landlord got really upset with me because I didn't water the cattle. And I said, yes, I did. And he said, no, you didn't. I said, so we got a little bit of a debacle over that. And so anyway, life went on, and we sold the calves as fat cattle, and we sold the cows with calves on them. I never paid rent on the pasture, never paid for an ounce of hay, and I lost $6,700 on my half. And I figured that was my education again in the cattle business. No, but deep down in, I showed cattle. You know, we'd come up here as kids, fair and walk around. And then when we started having kids, I'd bring my children and their nephew or their cousins up, and we go to the tractor pull every year. Always go to the tractor pull. I think then when they moved it, we kind of lost a couple years, and then they've gotten bigger and they've gotten kids. So a couple years ago, I brought all the grandkids up, and the nephews and everybody. We had half the section over pull. The pull was a big deal to me.
So to not have those pulls for a couple years was probably pretty tough for you.
Oh man, was it ever hard, because you were just so geared up that second Wednesday of August. You laid all plans aside. We're going to the tractor pull, guys. Then all of a sudden it's like, Dad, now what do we do? And the nephews go, Uncle Rob, what are we going to do? I said, I don't know, guys. So one year we decided to go to Decatur to the tractor pull for the Farm Progress Show. So I took all the boys down, and we got down there, and then it kind of rained. It's like, oh, this is going to ruin the day. But no, we got in a trailer that was the pulling company, Bear Money Pulling Company. That was who owned the trailer. And we sat and talked to them for like 2 hours. And then after that, I got in the sled. I rode in the sled for like a whole section of pull. This sled was like the last class. I got in at 10:30 and got out of court till 3 in the morning. Because once you got in, they wouldn't let you out.
Because it had to be fair for everybody.
For everybody.
Your 200 pounds were the same for everybody.
Exactly.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about it.
So the tractor pull has always meant a lot. I've always been a horsepower guy, get stuff done, make, just that that urge has just been awesome. And so then after the tractor pull, of course, we'd always come up here and eat.
Yeah.
Because we didn't work on those days the fair, I don't remember what days we had for Washington County, but we go back to this pork tent. I was on a couple committees, and I was never officially on the pork board, but Iowa Pork Board. So, but I did a lot, and a lot of it involved being on the committee. And this is a hairy committee. You kind of gotta kind of get along and understand each other, and it's just like this thing runs the fair, I think.
Well, let's talk about that here. We are eventually going to go for a golf cart ride, but I want to set up a little bit here, because this is, I think, year 3 for the new venture. This was always here.
Yes.
But it now has an upgrade that allows you to do, when you host World Pork Expo, you can have a permanent structure. You can use it if you need to other times of the year. You don't have to bring a tent in. But let's discuss A, smell-o-vision, and B, visual to see your food being prepared right in front of you. Why is that important for these folks who might not know much about a pig farm?
Well, it shows that we are real producers that raise the product, and we are real producers that cook our own food, and we know how to cook it. And so when people see you doing that, they see two things. They know you're a chef, and they also know that you do raise the product. Yeah. And like a year ago when Secretary of Ag Rollins was here and we were flipping pork chops together, that just puts a perspective on, yeah, they do know what they're doing, type of thing. And I think that's the impression you leave, and that's the important part of this tent, is that producers come up and work here.
And over the years, plenty of politicians who are running for president, governor, Congress, Senate have come here. We're going to get into the politics side here because that's a very good transition. So we're going to move a little bit here, Rob. Right. Now, I'm just going to warn you.
Now, I'll jump out if you ask the wrong question.
Correct. That's easy. Duck and roll. That's all you have to do. I'm going to try not to turn into anybody like I've done in the past with others.
I don't know how that works.
It's still famous. Go back, watch the Mike Naig interview from a couple of years ago.
I did watch it.
It was...
because I wanted to see what I was getting into.
Yeah, and boy, he does not let me forget it.
I'm sure.
So the fair.
He's a class act.
The fair is, you talk about your tractor pull, you talk about your pork tent experience. What other experiences other than losing a bunch of money trying to get here with cattle? What's been your Iowa State Fair experience?
You know, it's just, you can't walk down here without walking into somebody you know or haven't seen for a year or something. And it's open, and you just go walk, and you just go where you damn well please. Yeah. You know, there's no direction, no whatever. You go to the pig barn, and yes, I do go to the pig barn because I believe that's our future. Those kids are fantastic, and 4-H is why I'm here today. 4-H and FFA both is why I'm here in a leadership role today. Without those two events, coming to the state fair as a kid, coming up and watching these kids grow up, I wouldn't be here today.
Rob, you know it just as well as I do. The face of who is in those barns and who is showing is different. It is not the male, the male it used to be. There are a lot of women who are showing, who are raising the animals, and they are not necessarily from a farm background. Exactly. How is that face changing?
Oh, it's just, I think it's exciting because those kids want to raise pigs. And so what you want to do is take that knowledge and that ability to use technology like they do and their brain and say, how do we harness that? And it starts here at any fair, any county fair, and the education that they're getting through, you know, FFA and 4-H, how to be leaders. I've told kids 100 times when I give speeches, you want to be something in life, be a leader. There's room for all kinds of leaders. Not a manager, we need managers, but we need leaders. And this industry has great leaders.
And you are someone who is in 4-H or FFA, you are learning varied skills of any topic. How to answer questions, that helps you set you up for an interview. It sets you up for just a greater understanding. Again, I mean, just use the agriculture sense, where your food is grown, who grows it, and you now have to get into the policy side of things. So when did you start learning about policy and farm policy, Rob?
In all honesty, in FFA and 4-H, some farm policy, because you were kind of a politician. You were representing the industry the whole time you were at the state fair showing or the county fair showing, because there's all kinds of politics in the local county fair. With fair boards and people and the cattle guys and the pig guys and the chicken guys. There's politics every day of the week. And you kind of learned how to handle those situations at an early age. And you knew, Dad says, work it out, Robbie. Work it out. Figure it out. It's your problem. And so you learned how to take care of those problems. And politics is problems. Somebody wants this and somebody wants that. And how do you come together to get to something that you're both happy with? There's no way you ever come together and get everything you want or everything you want. It's how do we compromise and work this out for the good of the entire industry or the entire United States.
We could spend an hour on three C words. Compromise, China, and California. How about we'll get to those all. There's a little bit of a tease.
Yay.
You are a producer in Washington, Iowa, Washington County, Iowa. Tell me quickly about your farm.
Well, we're just literally southeast here, about less than 2 hours. But so we're fair to finish. We've got 56,000 sows, and we've got half of them are in Iowa, right in Washington County, and the other half are in Missouri. And so we've got multiplication, and we raise our own gilts. It's all in Missouri, and we bring the gilts home, and that's what we use for production. We finish all of our pigs. They all go to Tyson in Columbus Junction. We're very proud of that. We've got a fantastic relationship. And so the pigs, I would say, of all the pigs we feed out, the 800 and some thousand we have on feed, probably 80% of those are in Washington County. And then we're in Keokuk County, Louisa County, Iowa County, Johnson County, and Muscatine County. But the majority is in Washington County. We have our own feed mill. We'll make roughly 2,500 ton a day, 14,000 ton a week through our own feed mill, and it's right there where we live in Washington County. And so there's like 100 trucks a day in and out of our driveway, bringing ingredients in. We buy all of our corns probably within that same circle. We have pigs. 95% of our pigs are within a 25-mile radius of our home, of where we live.
And that is no small feat. So who is all involved in your operation family-wise?
Family-wise, I've got the kids are all involved. We've got 4 kids and 12 grandkids. The 4 kids and they all live within a mile of where we live, right next to the sow operation. Okay. So they're all right there. You just go around the block. It's quite unique. We can take off on the Ranger, or they can take off on the Ranger. They were up yesterday to eat. They just come up and Grandpa fixes them burgers, pork burgers. And, so that's where the majority of our stuff, we use a lot of TN employees. They live in the county. Most of the people who take care of pigs, who contract growers, are in the county. Mm-hmm. We focus a lot on local, whether it's Washington County or wherever we're at. We believe in the fairs. We believe in fairs greatly, and we believe in the next generation. We support schools. We support 4-H. We support all that stuff. With burgers at ball teams, we support ball teams in Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, wherever it is, with burgers, because we want to get the pork burgers everywhere.
Well, you need all that help because your role as president of NPPC, yes. You are on the phone, on a meeting, doing interviews, or on a plane.
Yes, exactly.
Washington, D.C., just before we started to record this, Senate Ag Committee last week did not advance the Farm Bill. What does that mean from an NPP's perspective?
Let me give a shout out to, we got a great team at home also that works with the kids to take care of that project, because when I do go to DC, we've got a great, they like it when I'm gone, because then that means they get to make all the decisions, and they've gotten very, very good at it. But to the Farm Bill, the key point of that is we got the Farm Bill through the House. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal. That's sitting there just waiting to get taken care of. And when the Senate left, they didn't have the votes to get that Farm Bill passed. So everybody's got to go think about it, which is better than a no vote and losing it. So so they go home and they think about it, and it's, they've got to, speaking of compromise, they've got to make a compromise. Yeah. And it's all on SNAP air rates. It's not about Prop 12. The compromise isn't that. There might have to be to get it across the line, but they've got to figure out if they're going to, quote, pass a Farm Bill. And then once they figure out that they're going to pass the Farm Bill, first of all, they got to get along to pass it. Go back to my 4-H days.
Yes.
They got to learn to compromise. And I know that's a struggle. And I believe, talking to the people that I've talked to, I think if they just hit the right button on the right day, they're going to come up with the compromise. And when that compromise happens, we're going to be at the table, because that means that we're ready to get the Farm Bill across with the Prop 12 fix.
So Prop 12, is that the number 1, number 2, number 3 issue from your vantage point?
Absolutely. Yep.
Where does trade fit in then? Do you feel that they're tied together, or are they separate?
I think, trade is a big...
You guys got a minute?
Trade is a huge deal for us. I mean, with 25 to 28% of our product being exported, trade deals are a big deal, and we consistently work on those. Yeah, the others are priority, but those are priority too. And USMCA, huge priority. I just left a meeting with the Canadians here to meet you. And that's a huge priority for both of us, and the Mexicans, and all the way down the line. So we we are focused on trade every day of the week. We're focused to get a fix to Prop 12 so that producers know where to go from here.
You mentioned Canada and Mexico and the USMCA. We had President Trump put one together, and then all of a sudden he has said, maybe I don't think this is the exact bill that I want, and there's going to be a renovation. Does that give you indigestion, or you're going to tell me it's an opportunity? Why is it an opportunity?
To me, just knowing how we've watched President Trump work over the years and as an individual in his own business, I mean, he's, in my mind, this is me, because I'm a little bit similar in ways, I believe he's trying to get a better deal than what USMCA is. And I think that's why he's got it up for negotiation. Okay, let's say President Trump comes in and says, yeah, in his mind he's probably saying, we're going to pass this somehow, but I'm going to get, quote, what I want. And so if we look at that, then there are things that, anything we can do to increase the stability of trade with Canada and Mexico is huge, because Mexico's our largest and Canada's third or fourth. Anything we can do to keep those borders open, God forbid something else happens in ASF, because that's going to affect all of us, or some other attack in some way, whatever that is, with our borders. I mean, our borders are drivable, not shipped, not this. We can cross the lines, but we've got to get along. And
they're major partners. You go back to beef. I mean, it's a huge part of the beef and the corn side of the Mexico is, and Canada is right there too. That relationship is important. Where is China in this discussion right now? Because on the commodity side, we're always talking about, will China buy? What is China buying right now when it comes to pork?
And, China still buys pork, and it's the stuff nobody here really eats or likes, so it's a good thing. Anytime we can export to any country, China or whoever it is, it's a big deal. And China is a huge importer of pork, even though they raise a lot of pork. There's a lot of people there. And so it's a big deal to get along on the trading side.
Is that going to be, though, trade is going to become small t with China because of their increase in their own products that they're growing?
The thing I think, just my vision of that is that their cost is quite higher than our cost. And so that it'll probably come down to the day like it is, we can import cheaper than we can make. And with them being a country the way they operate, they probably just shut some stuff down and buy it cheaper than they can make it. That's what I believe can happen.
And that's been their long time MO in everything.
Yep. Exactly.
But it also is that once they figure it out, it might change the dynamic.
Yes.
You and I might not be here, but we might be here. You just don't know.
We might. Who knows? I mean, it comes down to every day we've got to be really good at what we do. And my veterinarian, Dr. Tim Lola, said, he who does it well does more. That's what gets you the privilege to do that. And so if we do well and we do better than the Chinese do, then hopefully we earn a seat at the table, because they're saying, I can buy that cheaper than I can make it. And that's what we in this country have focused on for years. Sometimes it's sad to say, it's not what we get in the marketplace, it's what we save at home that actually is what makes us profits, even though we want all we can get in the marketplace. But it's work on the stuff we have control over.
We're going by the building to our right, the Varied Industries building. That has been a center part of World Pork Expo, and you bring people from around the world. One of the topics always, I'm guessing early in your career, Rob, disease was much more of a discussion all the time. We had a little flare-up last year. Where are we at? What's the disease protocols? How do you feel about the science of everything right now when it comes to growing that animal?
It's very complicated right now. PRRS is kind of told science they don't know what they're doing in a way. Because it's hard to fix. A lot of the other stuff we can get control over, but PRRS has kind of affected everything. And with all the movement of pigs that are around, and as rampant as that virus can run, it's made life complicated. Doesn't affect trade any, but unlike some of the other stuff does. But I think from a standpoint as an industry, we definitely have got to get control of PRRS. And there's, we've got a committee, the Pork Board has a committee, and there's a huge effort there's a huge push put on to let's fix PRRS.
I know you have market analysts and you have economists, and they keep you up to date on trade. It seems to be, unfortunately, I think I say some of the same things each week on the TV show about hog market. When is that demand finally going to pick up with encounter with what's going on in the beef market? And just this week, the demand story started to change. What's going to change the demand story for you? What needs to change?
The demand story comes off if somebody likes your product and wants to eat it, and we honestly are producing the best product that we produced in my lifetime. We've got some, we got fat back into the loin, and we've got flavor, and the ground pork is on fire. All Tyson, all these companies have got ground pork is moving really well. And, like Fairway's featuring what they call the Boston butt burger, which is ground out of butts. And at home, we've been doing that same thing. My son-in-law grinds all our ground pork out of butts, and there is a difference. So I think flavor, taste and flavor, taste what pork can do, the new slogan that the pork board has got out, I believe that's helping influence demand. The question is how do you measure demand? It's been a complicated thing to measure, because the way I see demand is how much is in the freezers. If the freezers are emptying out, that means the demand's there. The price thing, I think I had a conversation with my Tyson guy the other day, and he truly believes that this high-priced gas and stuff, and diesel, of course, on the transport, high-priced gas has put a slow on people going out to eat and stuff. And you kind of see that when you go places. There's restaurants that aren't full, and they're probably they're going to drive anyway, but they're probably tending to save a little bit on where they go to eat and stuff. And so I think demand is picking up. There truly is. You can see it. There's more people that you talk to that'll eat a pork burger today than they did 2 years ago.
And where we started, and the pork chop on a stick, and the pork chop, and all of it makes it so wonderful. All right, this might be the part of the ride where you roll out, where I turn around. But I'm going to also, in a conversation with one of your predecessors from Ohio a year ago, we talked about MAHA, and we talked about the health side, and fresh ingredients, good ingredients, and there's an argument and a discussion of, is pork sausage, is a pork burger processed, not processed? Where are we at there?
I believe, I've been a big MAHA. I mean, I've been involved because I'm a carnivore, and so I've gotten to know several of those people. Like, I've had conversations with RFK, Callie Means, Gary Brecka, all those guys. I know them, and because of what I've been doing in my life with carnivore. And so, sausage, it depends on what's in the sausage.
Sure.
Ground pork, it depends on what's in the ground pork. So if it's pure ground pork with no sugar or anything added, that's where the distinction of what an ultra-processed foods has to come out to be. And if it's processed and it's got stuff like that in it, then it needs to be called an ultra-processed food. Which, seasonings, no. But anything, they're big on the dietary guidelines, and they're big on insulin resistance and that stuff. So it's about basically how much sugar is in your stuff, in a nutshell. That's where it's going to, I believe, it's going to draw the line.
And
food colors.
And sugar and food colors, and I know that's what we're going after. And I am, and that the corn industry is a part of that too, because they're trying to figure out what's going on with one of their main products.
Exactly.
So, do you feel that from when you started as a farmer to when you're getting close at some point, I'm not saying tomorrow you're handing things off, do you feel that your industry has matured enough to the point that it can survive all of the changes that we've discussed today and resolutions hopefully on some of these issues? What's going to allow it to continue for another 40, 50 years?
Well, once again, that's in our hands, because we've kind of, guys my age have all kind of really hit this pretty hard and made it a lifestyle. And it's our job to pass it down, or train, or lead, or coach the next generation to want to do this. And that is the toughest part, to want to do this. It's not the easiest job in the world. It can be, but there's so many balls that get thrown at you every day. And when you start talking about PERS and demand and all that stuff, some of the next generation is throwing their hands up and says they don't want to be a part of that, but we need them.
The next generation, though, maybe not as many independents as there was.
Right.
We've already kind of, do you think we've hit the tipping, not necessarily the tipping point, but the peak of non-independent producers who aren't contracted out for someone else?
When you explain that, the non-independent. In other words, there won't be as many independents moving ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that? Is that even a fair assessment anymore?
It kind of is, because we've had calls in the last 2 weeks, guys that want to raise pigs for us that have their own sows, but they just are tired of battling the disease problems,
right,
the market problems, all that stuff, and the labor problems. You know, so they're saying, I don't know, I'm done. So will you put pigs in my barn? Mm-hmm. And that's a big deal. And so I think that's going to continue. There's going to continue to be some consolidation, and in order for us to consolidate more, even to do more ourselves, we've still got to have people trained coming on board. And so, you know, we send people to ALF classes, future leading classes, to help train to be a leader, and that's my job.
Yeah.
And I've gotten better at it. My wife's way better than I am, but that's not what I grew up doing, is wanting to train somebody to do my job. But that's what I have to do. So guys my age, the main point I would say is learn how to pass it on, but coach them first. Just don't say, here it is, it's yours. You've got to coach it, because it's not easy.
And I appreciate that. And I think that is so important, because you don't want to be retired and look and go, what did you?
Yep.
And that you're just as involved in trying to train, and it's only as good as who picks it up from you.
Right. I didn't, my wife and I, and of course my kids involved, we didn't build this to hand it off to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Some integrator. We built this. Our main goal is, I want the next generation involved. And in our county, Washington County is amazing. We've got probably 40 guys that are under, it used to be 40, but probably now it's 45 or 50, that are involved. They raise pigs for us. They've built barns, several barns. They've bought ground, they rent ground, and they're still in Washington County. And that's been my goal from day one. Once we got to a point and said, we need barns, and after going through pork colleges, you don't want to own the finishing barns. You want to take the sows and make pigs, and that's what we've done since '96, '97. And so in that process, that's how the young people that are in our operation have come in, and that's what we continuously try and develop, is the county or the area.
You continue to hand it off and pass it off, and hopefully we'll just have new challenges, but we'll be trained enough that we can handle anything that comes our way. Thank you.
And starts right over here, some of it, in those 4-H barns, FFA barns. Those pig people, they are going to be good. They're going to be fantastic. It
is fun. If you've never gone to a swine show or even a cattle show, they're okay. But let's be honest, the swine shows they are fun, and it is the kids and the excitement. I always like to follow the kids out of the ring after they win.
It's awesome.
Isn't that an awesome sight?
When that pig walks out, now granted, we've got both show pigs and non-show pigs, and both kids are great. But when you watch those show pigs come out and their eyes are on it, they're intense, and that's the way they're going to be the next job they go to if they don't do their own pigs. They'll be that intense.
All right, your next job, Rob, is I think I got to drop you up off the tent, and it's influencers, and so the social media side. I mean, those have been helpful, educational, informative. You hope it's those first three and not inflaming opinions, but we've had some of those.
That can happen.
But I still think if you can meet a farmer, talk to a farmer, ask him, go visit a farm, I think it's always a good opportunity.
And when we go to D.C., that's a big deal. You're a real farmer. I say I'm a real pig farmer. And when you go to D.C. and you talk to people and you are a real pig farmer, you get some attention. Yeah. Because they want to make you happy.
Yeah. And they want to, there's probably some staff that want to ask you some questions.
Oh yeah, it is interesting.
They're like, you don't smell. Well, I had to go through TSA. They wouldn't let me bring that across any further.
And the staffers are the ones that give you the key to the door.
And knowing a little bit about how DC works now that you've been there, you understand that some of those staffers are pretty young and have no farm experience. There is a perfect opportunity of someone who's in a decision making, and they're passing that information on to who they are working for. Mm-hmm. So you are always doing the education side.
Always. And I made the statement, DC is run by 30-year-old kids. because they're the ones that are out running the streets and talking to you, meeting you in meetings, and then you kind of got to get their permission to meet the real senator or the real congressman.
Yeah.
If they don't think you're good and you haven't done a good job of showing yourself, they're going to say, I'm sorry, they don't want to see you. They're busy.
Yeah.
But if you can make an approach and you can make them feel it, and say, hey, I want to get you in to see so-and-so. And it works.
And all you have to do is usually just say bacon, and it works.
Bacon works great.
That's a good entry point.
Especially when you tell them that I claim, I used to call it the bacon diet. When I lost my 105 pounds, I ate a pound of bacon every day. And then people have absorbed that. And I say, hey, if you want to go on a real diet to lose weight and be healthy, use the bacon diet.
Sounds good to me. I like it.
You got it.
All right. Rob Brenneman is the president of the NPPC. He's from Washington, Iowa, and this has been the M2M podcast. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time here from the Iowa State Fair. Now I'm going to have the crew introduce themselves, and we're going to find out who puts this podcast together.
There you go.
We are produced at Iowa PBS. Our production supervisor is Sean Ingracia. His crew is Reed Denker, Kevin Rivers, Julie Knudsen, Neil Kyer, and David Feingold. The executive producer of Market to Market is David Miller. I'm Paul Yeager. We'll see you next time.